This is Dave Moreland. In 1957, magnificent mentor Dudley Waller was a TV newscaster in El Dorado, Arkansas. Dudley managed to scrape together the money to buy KEBE, a small AM station in Jacksonville, Texas. In the early 1970s, KEBE's success led to Waller filing for a construction permit for KEBE-FM. It was the first 100,000-watt FM in East Texas, and the coverage was massive. After a call letter change to KOOI, Sunny 106.5 became an East Texas powerhouse and a leader in both ratings and revenue for the combined Tyler-Longview-Jacksonville market. Sunny's fortunes eventually allowed Waller to purchase other East Texas broadcast properties, including KYKX, KKUS, and KOYE. In 2005, Waller sold these 4 properties to Access One of New York for the unheard-of price of $26 million. But that did not mean he or his family were totally out of the biz, as they continue to operate 2 stations from their home base in Jacksonville still today. Sadly, Dudley passed away in May. But his family, friends, peers, colleagues, and others who he guided along the way are here to honor his memory and his mentorship. The late Dudley Waller is a 2016 inductee of the Texas Radio Hall of Fame.
This is Michael O'Shea. The second magnificent mentor we introduce today is my longtime friend and former radio partner, Dan Mason. Already an accomplished programmer in the 1970s, it was charter inductee Ken Dow who brought Dan to Texas for his first shot as a general manager at KTSA and KTFM San Antonio. Wasn't long after that until First Media Corporation, founded by Richard Marriott, noticed Dan's success as a programmer turned general manager and hired him in Houston as GM of their KFMK. Dan ushered the transition of First Media to Cook Inlet, and for his stewardship, the group agreed he was the one to run their entire radio division. That meant a change of geography from Texas to Washington, D.C., where Dan was president of their stations in Washington, Boston, Chicago, Atlanta, Houston, Seattle, and Phoenix. When Cook Inlet Radio exited the business, Dan was recruited by Group W Radio as their president. Group W sold to CBS. CBS became Infinity. Dan stepped aside for a short while, and then CBS was reborn. Dan returned to CBS as president of CBS Radio and successfully ran that radio division for years until his, quote, retirement just last year. But his love of sports and his background in broadcasting made for the perfect combination for CBS TV's NCAA college basketball, so Dan hired on and became a road warrior of sorts, calling national TV college basketball play-by-play. Dan also expresses his passion for radio as the chairman of the Broadcasters Foundation and just recently became a senior advisor for iHeartRadio. Always true to his first love, Dan could not be with us for he's on the road doing a CBS East Coast telecast today, but he sends his thanks and well wishes to his many friends and former associates here in Texas. Magnificent mentor Dan Mason, a 2016 inductee to the Texas Radio Hall of Fame.
This is Bill Ingram. George Schank grew up in a town with the coolest name, Cut and Shoot. As luck would have it, radio was not far from his reach as a group of investors in nearby Conroe built a radio station right across the street from his home. He took to it instantly, and they took to him. He took the opportunity to learn it all. It was not long before he earned his third-class ticket, and off he went. First broadcasting high school football on KNRO, then spinning the hits, covering news, and honing his skills as an engineer, making sure the tubes were glowing hot. His talents were noticed by the big-time Houston TV stations like KPRC and KRIV, where he served as operations and audio engineer. But radio was his first love, and over the years, legendary signals like KTRH, KLOL, KXYZ, and the KSBJ Group have counted on his good work to make sure their properties operated at effective radiated awesomeness. George served our country in the Air Force Reserve for an impressive 33 years, was a deputy sheriff, and spent 14 years as a frequency coordinator for the NFL. Despite his busy schedule, George made sure to pay forward his knowledge of the industry, and still today encourages newbies with an eye on broadcasting to not only jump in with both feet and do it like he did, and learn every conceivable aspect of the biz, especially the ever-growing link between radio and the digital world. Today, he manages a number of broadcast facilities and personnel and oversees construction of studio space and transmitter sites across the state. It is an honor for me to introduce you to my mentor, good friend, and your newest honoree, George Schank, a 2016 inductee of the Texas Radio Hall of Fame.
Thank you for that introduction, Bill. R.B. McIntyre told me this is what happens to you when you spend half a century in the broadcasting business. I'm grateful to have all of my family here today. Thankful for having my mom and dad here too. My daughters have a way of keeping me humble, though. When they found out that we were going to have this gathering here, a couple of them called me to the side and says, "Are there going to be any famous people here, though?" My mom, I got my a third-class license when I was in the 8th grade, and my mom used to have to drive me to work. And here back in July, when I told her I'd been inducted into the Hall of Fame here, she says, "Well, does this mean that you're going to quit playing now and go get a job?" But I spent some good times behind the mic in Conroe and at a couple of other places, and thoroughly enjoyed that. Thought I had the personality to be on the air, but actually found out that I had a better chance of surviving this business over on the engineering side, because I noticed when radio stations changed formats, all of the personalities seemed to disappear, but the engineer seemed to stay there because he knew where all the bodies were buried, you know. So I pretty much stuck with that over the years, and that's been a good ride. Worked with some great organizations, CBS being one of them, and KSBJ's group down there in Houston, and worked with a few other class operations, and met some really good people, and made a lot of wonderful friends on and off the air in this business. People like Bill Ingram here, who introduced me. If you don't know it, Bill's Houston's top traffic personality. You won't find a better one on the air down there. Andy Waldrop, back there, former inductee. What can I say about Andy? Except that this summer, one of my grandsons was working with me on a studio project down there in Houston, and I had to send him and Andy on an errand one day, and I think Andy added a few new words to his teenage vocabulary in that time, some of which his mom probably wishes he'd forget. And on the way home from work, he's riding home with me, and he'd been kind of quiet, but he looks over at me on the way, and he says, "You have some really warped friends, you know." But today it's an honor to stand here among a group of people that I can sincerely call friends. Thank you for making me your friend and inducting me into this august organization. I am truly honored. God bless all of you.